All right, let's go ahead and get started. My name is Jackson. Thank you all for joining today. The webinar today is New Relic Infrastructure Integrations, SDK. Today we have speaking Aaron Newcomb and Ramon Guiu. I'll go ahead and go over a few housekeeping items first and foremost. Today's webinar will be recorded, and we'll send a recording to you tomorrow morning in your inbox. And, we are live here. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the webinar control panel. We'll be doing a live Q&A session after the fact. And of course, when we close the webinar today, if you have any feedback for us, we'd be happy to hear it and any additional questions that you may have. So please, throughout the day, throughout the webinar, please feel free to just ask the questions. With that, I'll hand it over to Aaron, and he can do some introductions.
Great, thanks, Jackson. So my name is Aaron Newcomb. I'm the product marketing manager for the infrastructure product, and I'm going to go through just a few things here in a minute. But just a little background on me. So I'm fairly new to New Relic. I've been here for 4 or 5 months now, but am super thrilled to be able to work on this product because it's really, really an amazing product. I think you're really going to like what we're going to show you today. But I've been doing this for quite a while, and yeah, just super thrilled to be able to talk about a really cool product like this. Ramon, do you want to just introduce yourself quickly?
Sure. So my name is Ramon Guiu, and I lead product management for New Relic Infrastructure. I'm based in beautiful Barcelona. So New Relic has an office here, product office here in Barcelona. And I also joined New Relic recently, about 5 months ago. As Aaron, I'm super excited to be with New Relic, and I've been in product management for the last 10, 12 years.
Awesome. Great. I think one of the reasons we're both so excited is the topic that we're going to be actually talking about today, which is the new SDK that we recently released. And I know a lot of our customers have been looking forward to this. So that if it sounds like we're excited, we really are, because we're finally able to put this in the hands of customers so that they can dive in and develop their own stuff for New Relic infrastructure. All right, let's move forward. So just a quick agenda so you know what we're going to be talking about. I am going to do a really brief overview of New Relic infrastructure just for those that are new to the product, or maybe they're joining for the first time and they really don't know much about it. Just to capture those folks and make sure they understand what New Relic infrastructure is all about. That shouldn't take very long, maybe about 5 minutes. And then we're going to talk about the SDK itself, how it works, what it is, what it does. And the cool thing is Ramon is actually going to be doing kind of a walkthrough of the SDK, a live demo, if you will, and he'll be able to walk through exactly what it looks like, how you build an integration at a high level, and how you might use the SDK for your own needs. We'll talk a little bit about some integrations that we're developing that are going to be coming out very soon. So you're going to want to stick around for that for sure. And then I'll tell you where to get more information in terms of technical details and things like that. And as Jackson mentioned earlier, we'll have some time at the end for our questions. So if you have questions as we're walking through the demo, as we're talking about the product, don't wait. Go ahead and put it in the question, ask a question using the GoToWebinar tool, and we'll try to get to that at the end when we're finished. So with that, let's talk about New Relic infrastructure a little bit. So New Relic infrastructure is a product that's now about 7 months old. We released it last November. And it's a standalone product, but it integrates in a lot of ways with the rest of our portfolio. So it's not just about infrastructure monitoring, although that's its main purpose, but it also integrates with our other products like our APM tools or our mobile browser and synthetics tools. And the cool thing is that when you put all of those products together, it allows you to do things like trace down from the application layer or from the device layer even down into the infrastructure to find out when you're having a potential problem. You're actually able to pinpoint, hey, is this a problem with my database server? Or is it a problem with my cloud vendor? Or is this a problem with my application somewhere. Maybe my Android application isn't running correctly, and you're actually able to paint that picture in a way that helps you get to resolution of problems faster, and also helps you improve the way that your applications work for your end users, for your customers, which is the most important thing. So it's one piece of a bigger puzzle. In terms of New Relic infrastructure specifically, there's a few things that it does that we feel are unique, and things that our customers have told us they really get a benefit from. Number one is something I already mentioned, which is what we're seeing from our customers, especially as they start deploying in cloud, is that their host environments change dramatically, even over the course of a few hours sometimes, as companies grow and get big, and they have to spin up more instances on demand to deal with a potential influx of either new users or, hey, it's Amazon Prime Day today. Guess what? They're probably spinning up a lot of new instances to deal with higher demand than normal. So when that happens, it becomes very difficult to track what's going on across those environments. And what infrastructure allows you to do is to deploy to those dynamically growing and shrinking ecosystems very easily and effectively, especially with things like our dynamic tagging that allow you to know exactly, hey, I want to alert on these particular group of hosts, and as new hosts spin up, that alert carries over to those new hosts as they enter your ecosystem, so that you don't miss anything. You don't spend time worrying about that. But not only that, it also scales across cloud, containers, on-prem, but you don't have to be running in the cloud. So you're able to get a consistent view across all of those areas, so that when you're troubleshooting a problem, your view of your world looks consistent no matter where you're doing it from. And it also allows you to drill down into things like configuration changes that might be happening in your environment, inventory. So if you have a certain software package, for example, that maybe was hit with a security vulnerability that morning, you can come in and within about less than 5 minutes, you're able to see across all your hosts which hosts are impacted by that security vulnerability, and you're able to address that before a problem really even happens. So that's what we're trying to do, along with being integrated into deployment tools like Puppet and Chef and Ansible, being able to track Docker containers. We really want to paint the picture of being able to get a full and complete view of your entire host ecosystem in one place. That's about all I'm going to say for infrastructure for the purposes of this webinar. But if you do want to learn more, I'd highly recommend going out and checking another webinar we did called Infrastructure 101. And you can find that on newrelic.com/infrastructure. It'll give you a little bit better view of what the product is and what it does. And there's a whole series of other webinars there if you want to find out, oh, I'm really curious about what you said about tracking changes on my host. I want to see how that works. We've got detailed webinars and training available for you to drill down exactly in on what it looks like, what the product looks like when you're doing that, and how easy it is to solve for those particular issues. So once again, highly recommend you going out to the website and checking out those webinars if you want more detailed information on the product itself. All right, so what we're here to talk about today is the new Integrations SDK, which allows you to build your own integrations if you have a service that's running on your host, or maybe a custom database or something that's running on your host, and you want to bring some of that information into New Relic infrastructure to find out what's going on and to consolidate that information into one place. Like I said, this integration or this feature has been one of the most requested features because we have a lot of dedicated customers who are very tech savvy and want to get this information. And they're like, if I only had an SDK, I could write this thing up in a few minutes and get better information into what's going on in my environment. And so that's exactly what we've done. We've released the new SDK, and we're going to talk about the state that it's in and where it's going. And before I get myself into trouble, I think I'm going to bring in Ramon to talk about exactly what the SDK does and how it works. So Ramon, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. So as Aaron was saying, the purpose of the SDK is to help you and give you the possibility to monitor any of your hardware or software infrastructure components. The way it works is very simple. We'll look into more details, but basically you have an executable that is run, that returns in a standard output a JSON message that has a, looks like the one you see on the left. And then we take care of taking that data, pushing it to New Relic. And once the data is in, real time, you can track the performance health metrics of your infrastructure component. And you also have access to other information that we'll see in a minute. So with the metrics, as you can see here, you can build your own dashboards. So how it works. The infrastructure SDK works alongside the infrastructure agent that you install on the host to monitor things like CPU, memory, disk space, network traffic. And using the SDK, when you build an integration, you set it up on the corresponding host alongside the infrastructure agent. And what the infrastructure agent is going to do is it's going to schedule those integrations to run every n seconds. So that is sort of the harvesting period. Runs the executable, and the executable, the only thing it needs to care of is, okay, I need to connect to some infrastructure component, grab some data, monitoring data, and I print it to std out using the JSON format that we have defined. An integration is composed primarily of 3 files. There is, as I said, the executable. There is a definition file that contains some metadata about the integration itself, and it also specifies how often the executable should be run. And then there is a configuration file that can be used to pass additional parameters into the executable. Like if you need to connect to a host or to a MySQL instance, for example, you could pass as parameters the host and the port where MySQL is listening. Regarding monitoring data, something that is very important is we not only track metrics, so you can actually send back to New Relic metrics, operational events, and inventory. Okay, so metrics and operational events, I think they're clear. Inventory is like live state data. So it could be things like, we track an inventory, for example, by default, infrastructure agent would track the packages that are installed on a host and their versions. And for an integration, you can, for example, send the configuration. So you could be capturing the configuration of MySQL and send of those parameters back to New Relic using inventory. And the inventory feature in infrastructure will allow you to see what are the different settings that you have across all the different hosts or MySQL nodes in this case. So you can see deviations. And on top of that, it will also generate an event automatically when some of those parameters change. So you can also, if you want, set alerts and be notified when that happens. And I don't think that there is any other tool in the market that gives you deep visibility into all those 3 things: metrics, operational event, and inventory live state data. So in terms of version capabilities, today V1 is generally available. It has been available for a few weeks already. And it helps you, the V1 of the SDK, it helps you build integrations in any language you want. You can build custom dashboards, and you can set alerts. And as I said, you can send all types of data: events, metrics, and inventory. V2, which is currently in beta, and that we will GA, will become generally available next week. We focused on making the development of Golang integrations easier. So it contains a Golang SDK. It has support for JMX, native support for JMX, and it has a command line tool that will help you create the skeleton of an integration. So it already creates some of the files and some boilerplate code, so you don't start from scratch. And I will actually be demoing both, so you'll see how both work. The reason why we choose Go is because Go is self-contained, so you generate a binary that then you can install anywhere, and you don't have to care about the dependencies. Everything is, as I said, contained within the binary file. And with no further ado, let's jump into the demonstration. So what you see here, so I have a folder that has 2 subfolders here, V1 and V2. So V1 is an integration built using the SDK V1 that, as I said, is generally available. And as I was explaining before, an integration has 3 main files. It has an executable. In this case, it's a bash file. Okay, and if you look into the details of this bash file, what this bash file is doing is it is capturing the file count of a folder that is passed as a parameter. So you'll see that your integration, the arguments that are set in the config file are passed as environment variables to the executable, and that's how you can read them here. The dir size, so this is counting, how many bytes this particular folder pass as parameter is consuming on disk. You'll see there is an event here. So we generate an event if the dir size is higher than max size. Okay, so max size is another parameter, is a threshold that says when I want to generate an operational event, to notify, hey, the size of this directory, has grown too much. And then inventory, and in this case, inventory is just some metadata about the integration itself. And with that, for example, you could be tracking if you have this integration installed in different hosts. You could see, for example, if you're running different versions of the same integration across different hosts. So that would be an example. And the way this integration works, so this is not by no means mandatory, but the way we generate the JSON is that we use a template that we just replace the content here with some of the variables that we've captured before. And that makes it in the end easier to generate the JSON using bash. The great thing about this very simple mechanism that is based on outputting JSON is that you can test your integrations. Okay, so you could say, if I run, this is the bash file, the executable. If I run it, it tells you, okay, there was an error, so I had some controls there that say, okay, this variable is not defined, so it should be defined. So if I define it and then I run the integration, which is sort of, what you see here is sort of what the agent is doing, setting the environment variables and then running the integration. You see that it produced some JSON code. And let me take the JSON code and put it somewhere where we can more easily read it. So if I come here and I paste it here, you see that the structure is, there is a name, there's a protocol version, the integration version, then there are some metric information. These two, especially this field is very important. So this is telling you when we're capturing metrics, you are actually capturing a set of metrics, or what we call a sample of multiple metrics. And this is where they will be stored. And the idea is that you would use unique event types, as we call them, or samples for each of the different integrations that you use. And here we store, what was the folder, which is bar log, and what's the file count and the directory size in bytes. Then we have the event section where we have, a summary. This is, what we would show on the event section in infrastructure, as I would show in a minute. Then a category, you can classify them so you can then more easily filter them if that's what you want. And then the inventory, which, as I said, is in this case is just information about the integration, so that, for example, you can track if you're running the same version across all your hosts. So we've looked, we've spent time looking at the executable. Let's now take a look at the other two files. So the definition file first, and then the config file. So the definition file, as I said, contains some metadata. So it has the name of the integration, the protocol version. So protocol version, this is the protocol version or exchange protocol version for information between your integration and the agent. So it's basically the JSON payload that you saw. Now it's version 1. If it evolves in the future, we may require, that you use here version 2 if it's not, if these evolutions are not compatible. And in that case, you will still be able to run integrations that use the old version of the protocol alongside integrations that use the newer version of the protocol. there is some description, some metadata, and then here the operating system that is supported. In this case, it's Linux, so that this tells the agent to only run this integration if it's installed on a Linux operating system. And then there is a list of commands. So usually, in this case, there is only one. This is you may have, you have a more complex integration, as we will see for V2, you may have more than one. But basically, this just tells, this is the name of the command, and this is the, just calls the executable, how often we want to execute it. So this is every 30 seconds. And then this prefix is used for inventory. So once you have all that, those three files, then you just need to put them in the right place. And so I've already done it here, but the definition file and the binary file, they go in this folder, VarDB, New Relic, Infra Custom Integration. So you have here, well, I'm using symbolic links, but you have, this is the YAML file that is placed here, the definition file, and then the binary, in this case, the executable, the shell script, bash script goes into this folder. And finally, in order, this is just to install if you want your integration, and then to tell the agent to actually run the integration, you can go into New Relic Infra integrations, and this is where you would place the config file. And once you do that, you have to restart. Okay, so you would do a restart of the New Relic agent. That, of course, was you've previously installed. And if you come here, you'll be able to see in the event sections, you see we're generating events. So you see that because if we look at the config file, the size of varlock, we said that we wanted it to be max size. This is the threshold that we set, which is approximately a megabyte. And do pass as argument that this is the folder that we want to monitor. So because we are over that threshold, we are sending events, and it's sending events all the time here, because we're not cleaning up varlock, so that every 30 seconds an event is being generated for the purpose of showing how it works. We can go into inventory. So we said here inventory is going in here. So if we actually do a quick search, we can see how the author name and version went here, and this is for one host. If we have if we add more hosts, they will be listed here. If there are hosts that have a different values, like the version is different, then we will see also here that there are some hosts that have a different version, and this helps you detect differences. Then if we go now into Insights, actually I have it open here. Insights is the tool where is our dashboarding tool, where you can access the data and build your custom dashboards. So here, as you can see, these are the numeric metrics that are available. This is dir size and the file count. So I can quickly run them. Here you see this is the query that is being run. This is just as an example, but the information is here. So the file count is not changing, but the dir size is actually probably growing little by little, because there is a log file that is increasing. We don't appreciate here because the change is not as big as the comparables. The comparison between the change and the size of the file is not that big. But this is how you would access the three types of information that we capture. So the metrics, so you can build your own dashboards. Then the events and the inventory, as we saw. And the last piece is how we actually go about setting up an alert. So I'm gonna show that right now. So if we go into settings here and we create an alert condition, the way to set an alert is that I select here integrations, and I can select here the event type. So in this case, the event type I selected is the core tier size sample. And here I have the two metrics, the two numeric metrics on which I can actually set an alert. So I could select has a value above. So this is the standard alerting system that we have in infrastructure. So you have all the options available for your custom integrations as well. So this is what I wanted to say about V1. So now let's take a look at how V2 works. I mentioned before that you can create your, you have a command line tool in version 2 that allows you to create new integrations. That command line tool is called NR Integrations Builder. And the way it works, you can say need, and let's say, I'm just going to be calling it my integration. And that is what it does. It's going to create, it's going to initiate my integration, initialize it by creating a bunch of different files, including, the three important files, which are the source file for the executable, the definition file, and the config file. So if we go here and we take a look at at what it has generated for my integration, we see inside SRC there is a Go file, and this has the source, and so the integrations builder is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. So it's adding already a way to handle arguments, and it has a standard list of arguments already supported. It creates two methods for populating inventory and populating metrics. And as you can see, you have helper methods to add items into the inventory and to also add metrics. And then it handles errors, and it finally generates the JSON for you as well with this method here, integration publish. So once you've done this, actually, you can do a make, and you'll notice that, sorry, I have to get into this folder. You will notice that I am inside, I'm running on a Mac, so Go is cross-platform, so you can also use the, build your integration on a Mac and even test it. And so once the integration is initialized, if I do make, it builds the integration, and you can see there are some warnings here. They happen because we're running outside the agent environment. But you see that it's already generating the JSON for me. And now what I need to do is just care about grabbing inventory and grabbing the metrics in this case. So if we now take a quick look, there are other files, like a make file, a license file. These are sort of, the make file is good. License, if you could add your own license information for there is a README, so it reminds you, with some structure as to how you should structure that README file. And then you have still the definition, which already contains some information and some boilerplate info here. This is just the basic data. You can change the prefix for inventory. You can change the interval, but it does that's what we generate by default. And then you have the scaffold of a configuration file. Okay, so if we take one example we built using this for Redis. So let me open the Redis integration we have here. I'm going to close this. So I click this up, and I'm going to focus for the most part on this, the Redis Go. And by the way, before I move into that, just one thing that I didn't say that, but you get some arguments by default here already configured. So for example, you have a pretty and a verbose mode. So the pretty mode will help you see the structure of your your JSON, pre-printed, so it's easier for you to read. So if I go into the Redis integration that we built, so let's start by looking at the populate metrics method, which is the first one we did. So what this integration is doing is, first we're trying to read this information, like read ops per second is a metric that we want to send, and we're using this command, which is the Redis CLI info, that provides information about a bunch of different metrics, and we're just capturing this one. So basically here we're just running that command, parsing the output of this command, and then setting this metric value here. And here we're doing something similar, but this time we're reading connections received. So we're calling the same method, capturing total connections received, and storing here the metric. For inventory, in this case, we're capturing configuration parameters. So we have this, using the command line interface for Redis, we can run a command to retrieve this parameter. When we can retrieve this parameter, and we add it to inventory like this. So basically, we're adding this as the name of the parameter, and then the value after parsing the string that is return. And here we do the same, but in this case we do it for bind. And once we do these things, the integration is ready to go, and we have the populate metrics, we have the populate inventory methods filled in, and the last piece of the equation is this one, which is setting the event type here, and this is something we call provider. But the important piece is here. So it's this event type is what identifies the data, the samples that you're sending into New Relic. And so now that we have that, we can do the same. So we can come to, so we can look at the core Redis node sample, which is here. And again, so we have a bunch of couple of metrics that we capture, which are the receive per second and ops per second. So here, you have that the value has been changing. And if we go back to infrastructure, the information is showing inventory. So if we look at config Redis, which is the prefix, again, just to be clear and make sure people follow this, config Redis is configured in the definition, in the definition file here. You see prefix config Redis, and we're capturing a bunch of different parameters. Additionally, in your configuration, you can set labels, and those labels are like tags, and you can use those tags then inside insights to filter the data. So they are here. So you can actually filter here. We're only sending production, but if you have other labels, you can segment your data using those labels that you send. And in the same way we saw before, we can get into alerts, create an alert condition, integration, and the data is also here. It's the same thing. So we have the metrics that are being sent, and we can set alerts on those. So this is what I wanted to show for the demo, and now I'm going to hand it back to Aaron.
That's great, Ramon. I've been sitting here coming up with a list of my own questions for you, but we've got questions coming in from the chat as well. But real quick, just one quick thing. So you went through V1 and V2. V2 definitely looks more robust. Will V1 be around for a while for people that might want to write in another language, or will it eventually go away?
No, so V1, we're going to keep it. And actually, V1 is part of V2, so we will still give people the possibility to build the integrations in their own language. The only thing we're doing now is we're adding tools to make it easier to build them in Go. That's all.
Perfect. Awesome. And I know that one of the cool things for me about what we're doing with the SDK is that we're actually eating our own dog food, so to speak, in that we're actually using the SDK, as you mentioned. You gave a little preview there of the Redis integration, but we're actually using the SDK ourselves to write our own integrations. Can you kind of give us a preview of what integrations we're working on currently?
Yeah, that's right. So we're working and about to release next week. Also, they are in beta now. Our MySQL, Nginx, and Cassandra integrations. That include both metrics and inventory. And now we're working, on new integrations that we will release over the next months. We are working on Apache. We're working on Redis. We'll be working on RabbitMQ and many more.
Cool, awesome. Well, let's tell people how they can get more information, because I know we were just barely able to scratch the surface here. So one of the ways that you can get more information is you can go to the docs site. I probably recommend that one first, docs.newrelic.com, and learn how to use the SDK, a lot more technical information, walkthroughs of what you do, how you do it. So definitely check out the docs site. Also, you can join the forums and ask questions of other users, which is great because you can share knowledge that way, and we can also chime in. Our support group can chime in if you're having problems, but that's a great place to get help with something like this as well. And then follow the blog, because as we alluded to, we're going to have some announcements in terms of new integrations that are coming up. We're going to be working on these a lot over the next few months, and the blog is a great way to figure out or to find out when new things come out and how to use the new integrations as we're releasing them. Again, just going back to people that may be completely new to New Relic infrastructure, or if you know someone, you're like, hey, I just saw this webinar about this SDK, you should go try it out, it's really cool. And they're like, I don't use New Relic infrastructure. That's totally fine. Point them to the New Relic infrastructure website, and they can sign up for a free trial, or you can sign up for a free trial for 30 days. You get access to all the pro features of New Relic infrastructure, including the SDK. So you can take a look at both New Relic infrastructure and try the SDK out as well. In addition to that, we're going to have an opportunity for you to get even more information in New York at FutureStack. So our FutureStack conference, we do these regionally, but they actually, our big one is coming up in New York in September. And if you haven't registered, I'd highly recommend registering for that. It's a 2-day event. It's in New York City. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have Malcolm Gladwell, Ray Wong, and our very own Lou Cerny, founder of the company, is going to be there. He's always very energetic, and he's very technical and hands-on. So he'll probably give you some code tips as well during his presentation. So you definitely want to check that out. I believe there are some discounts. There's room still available, and I believe there are some discounts still available. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on FutureStack. And with that, I think we are ready to take some questions. So I'm going to turn it back over to Jackson. But before I do, there's one that came in from the audience. Is it okay if I take this one, Jackson? So there is a question that came in from the audience today, which was about, will there be a repository of these integrations where people can browse and find them? It's kind of a two-part question. So I'm going to let you handle this, Ramon, I think, which is,
Yes.
is there going to be a place where people can browse these integrations as we release them? And then also, like, are we looking at taking some homegrown integrations that other people build and maybe making those available? That one we may not know about yet, but certainly the first one I think we know the answer to.
Yes, so the first one is absolutely. We're going to be making all our integrations, the SDK, and also the command line interface tool available on github.com. So you'll have access to the sources, and you'll be able to browse them and use them as examples to build your own integrations. Regarding community-based integrations and how to incorporate those into the product, that is still under discussion. So we haven't finalized our plans yet as to how we're going to do it and what the process would be.
Perfect. Another good reason to keep your eye on the blog, because I'm sure if we do something along those lines, we'll talk about it on the blog for sure. So Jackson, what other questions have we got?
Yeah, so we had a few more come in, and please, if you do have more questions, feel free to ask them. If we don't get to them today, we will answer them via email. But first off, what OSs do you support?
Yes, so today we support Linux, and the versions of Linux we support are available on our website. So we support Ubuntu, CentOS, and Red Hat. The specific version, as I said, you can look at them on our website and the documentation for the infrastructure agent. And we are currently working on Windows support. But, so this quarter we will release the SDK for Windows as well.
Okay. Are there any plans for a push API?
Yes, definitely. So right now, as you've seen, there is a way to the method is polling. So every n seconds we poll, and we the integrations capture some metrics and we send it back to our servers. But in the future and within this quarter, we're going to be delivering a push API, so you'll be able to send your metrics whenever you want to New Relic, and they will be sent to the agent, and the agent will take care of all the heavy lifting to send the data back to the New Relic servers.
Great. So I have a question here. It's great to get all this information, but what's the performance impact of running the integrations?
Yes, so the performance impact on the agent itself, it's really, really low. The code is super optimized. Of course, what we cannot do is control, what people do with their own integrations and how expensive they are in terms of CPU resources and memory resources. The other thing we would recommend is, you try and make sure you keep those lightweight, and also play with the frequency, with the polling frequency, so that you don't overwhelm your servers. The other recommendation is that you don't run too many integrations on a single host, but rather install the integrations on the host where you're running the different services. So on top of spreading the load, you're also getting metrics for the individual infrastructure components and the host where those components are located, where they're running, so you can combine metrics for both.
That's awesome. I know that for those of you who know me outside of New Relic, I'm pretty technical. So this is actually on my bucket list to do pretty soon, is to write my own integration to something. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but it'll probably be something silly. But I definitely want to give this a try myself, actually, and take a look at this, because it's very, very powerful. And like I said, a lot of our customers have been asking for this since day one. So this is really awesome.
So with that, I want to close here. I wanted to tell everybody thank you for joining today's webinar, and thank you for your attention. Ramon, you did a great job with the demo. We already got some feedback from the audience that they really enjoyed it. Of course, if you as a participant have any more feedback for us or additional questions, we will have the survey after the fact that you'll be prompted when you begin closing your GoToWebinar control panel. As well, if you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to send them to webinars@newrelic.com, and we'll address them if you think of something later today or your drive home from work or whatnot. Thank you so much, and thank you again to Aaron and Ramon.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Thanks a lot.